Something is happening right now in the solar system that could change the way we understand our place in the universe. While you watch this video, a visitor from another star is crossing the hottest region of our cosmic neighborhood. The interstellar object known as 3I Atlas has just reached perihelion, the point closest to the Sun. It is precisely at this moment that the secrets of an object like this begin to appear. And what astronomers are seeing is not normal. We are talking about a traveler that spent millions, perhaps billions of years, wandering through interstellar space before crossing our path. Now that we can finally observe it up close, it has begun to behave in ways that challenge what we know about comets, asteroids, and celestial mechanics. 3I Atlas changes appearance, glows with unusual colors, and moves through space at extreme speed. For some scientists, it is just a natural fragment from another star system. For others, there is a far more unsettling possibility. What if this is not entirely natural? Data from the James Webb Space Telescope, Hubble, and ground-based observatories have begun converging towards something that could become one of the most important discoveries in modern astronomy. What is happening with 3I Atlas right now could be just a cosmic rarity, or the beginning of a much bigger question. But before we continue, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave in the comments what you think this object might really be. The story began in July 2025, when the Atlas survey in Chile detected an unusual object crossing the sky. From the very first moment, it was clear that it was not ordinary. Its orbit was not elliptical like planets, asteroids, or traditional comets. It was hyperbolic. That means it was not gravitationally bound to the Sun. It was not orbiting our star. It was simply passing through. This detail immediately placed it in an extremely rare category, confirmed interstellar objects. Before it, only two had ever been observed, Oumuamua in 2017 and Comet Borisov in 2019. Even compared to those historic visitors, 3I Atlas quickly stood out. Its speed exceeded 130,000 miles per hour, making it the fastest interstellar object ever recorded. Its trajectory indicated a surprisingly close approach to the Sun, about 1.36 astronomical units, and a relatively close pass by Earth at about 1.8 AU, approximately 166 million miles. In cosmic terms, that is practically next door. This proximity allowed extremely detailed observations, and it was remembering those first analyses that the signs began to appear that something was outside the norm. The object's light signature did not match any known type of comet or asteroid. It appeared too reflective and too stable under intense solar radiation. As it approached the Sun, telescopes around the planet began detecting anomalies. The Hubble Space Telescope identified something rare, an anti-tail, a bright jet of material pointing toward the Sun instead of away from it. This phenomenon has been observed in a few comets, but never with the intensity and stability now recorded. At the same time, instruments began registering unusual changes in the object's coloration. Different tones appeared and disappeared as it rotated and reacted to solar heat. Instead of the diffuse glow typical of comets, 3I Atlas seemed to display more structured variations. Another intriguing detail was the stability of its rotation. Natural objects that release gas jets usually begin to spin chaotically over time. But 3I Atlas remained surprisingly stable, something that drew even more attention from scientists. Ground-based observatories also began measuring small alterations in the object's trajectory. Subtle deviations that were not fully explained by gravity and solar radiation pressure alone. Small adjustments that recalled old discussions about the acceleration observed in Oumuamua. Then the James Webb Telescope entered the scene. Its infrared instruments began analyzing the object's thermal composition with unprecedented precision. The first results brought even more mystery. The thermal patterns did not perfectly match either ice-rich comets or rocky asteroids. Each of these characteristics individually could have a natural explanation, but together, They form a fascinating enigma, an extremely fast interstellar object with unusual brightness, a pronounced anti-tail, stable rotation, and a difficult-to-classify thermal signature. Regardless of its origin, 3I Atlas is already fulfilling an extraordinary role. It is expanding the limits of our knowledge and forcing us to revisit hypotheses about objects from other star systems. Perhaps it is just a rare fragment from another planetary system that crossed our path by pure cosmic chance. Or perhaps it is forcing us to ask much bigger questions. Either way, we are living through one of the most exciting moments in modern astronomy. Because at this very moment, while 3I Atlas continues its journey out of the solar system, telescopes around the world continue watching and trying to decipher the most intriguing visitor ever to cross our path. Weeks later, that anti-tail suddenly inverted, transforming into a normal tail pointing outward. The phenomenon was so abrupt and symmetrical that many wondered whether it could be a form of controlled propulsion. The Keck Observatory in Hawaii and the Nordic Optical Telescope in Spain confirmed the change, while the James Webb Space Telescope detected something even stranger. The coma of 3I Atlas, the cloud surrounding its nucleus, was composed of 87% carbon dioxide, 9% carbon monoxide, and only 4% water. No other comet in the solar system has this composition. It is practically dry, and yet it glows in infrared as if radiating heat from the inside out. Even more bizarre, spectroscopy revealed a massive cloud of CO2 around the object, extending nearly 218,000 miles, larger than the diameter of Jupiter. Within it were traces of hydrogen cyanide and a high proportion of nickel with almost no iron. Natural? Possibly. But as one scientist whispered, these are industrial proportions. When 3I Atlas reached perihelion, many expected it to fragment under solar radiation, like countless comets before it. Instead, it did something no one predicted. It survived. No fragments were detected. In fact, it emerged stronger. Observers noticed that a coronal mass ejection from the Sun struck its trajectory directly, an explosion powerful enough to instantly vaporize fragile bodies. Yet 3I Atlas barely reacted. It absorbed the impact and continued intact, with its surface temperature rising and then stabilizing as if it had been designed to withstand it. Its elongated shape, with a 10-to-1 ratio, resembled Oumuamua, long, thin, almost aerodynamic. But while Oumuamua tumbled erratically, 3I Atlas remained stable, reflecting light with a strange, negative polarization, a property no known natural object shares. Scientists began calling it the unbreakable visitor. That was when some theorists, including Avi Loeb of Harvard, placed it in Category 4 of his Loeb extraterrestrial scale, a classification system that ranks interstellar objects by the probability of being artificial. According to Loeb, 3I Atlas has a 40% chance of being technological. Others call this speculation. But as each new anomaly appears, that number begins to feel less like science fiction and more like prophecy. At this moment, 3I Atlas is performing the maneuver that could change everything, the moment physicists like Michio Kaku were waiting for. If the object accelerates beyond what solar gravity predicts, it will mean only one thing: it is under control. This maneuver, known as the Oberth effect, is a technique used by spacecraft to gain enormous speed by firing propulsion near a gravitational source, in this case, the Sun. If 3I Atlas does this, it will gain an impossible amount of kinetic energy, enough to be launched out of the solar system or worse, redirect its trajectory toward Earth. Astronomers around the world are watching, calculating, and waiting. So far, no deviation has been confirmed, but the data is still coming in. Meanwhile, NASA quietly activated its Planetary Defense Network, a coordinated observation campaign involving 227 observatories around the world, officially as a training exercise. But the timing is no coincidence. When rumors began spreading that radio telescopes had detected a faint but consistent signal synchronized with the orbit of 3I Atlas, the internet exploded. Was it calling home? Was it interference? Or was it something else? A whisper through the void from a machine older than our civilization. Days after 3I Atlas completed its perihelion passage, something impossible happened. It slowed down, not in a way explained by physics, not by drag, solar wind, or gravitational deceleration, but in a way that seemed deliberate. Tracking data from both NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory and the European Space Agency showed a measurable reduction in velocity, about 0.08 meters per second squared, consistent for 20 hours. It was as if the object had gently applied brakes. Natural objects do not do this. They do not resist the sun's gravity with controlled precision. Yet there was 3I Atlas, an object hundreds of meters long, performing a maneuver smoother than any spacecraft we have ever launched. The deceleration occurred precisely as it crossed a boundary known as the thermal equilibrium zone, where an object's internal heat equals the solar energy it absorbs. The implication terrified everyone. Something inside 3I Atlas may be reacting to the environment, regulating its temperature, and perhaps adjusting its route. In the same week, a research group in Japan, the Mitsuhara Deep Space Radio Observatory, captured a narrowband signal coming from the general direction of 3I Atlas. It was faint, but undeniably structured. A repeated sequence of 3 pulses followed by a pause, repeating every 247 seconds. The same mysterious interval first recorded months earlier when the object was behind the sun. At first, astronomers dismissed it as equipment noise or satellite interference. But when the same pattern was detected by independent teams in Chile, Italy, and South Africa, the scientific community could no longer ignore it. The signal was real. Even more unsettling was its stability. It did not vary with solar wind or cosmic background interference. It remained constant, as if tied to an internal clock. When analyzed through frequency modulation, the pulses displayed phase coherence, a sign of intentional encoding rather than random emission. NASA refused to comment publicly, but an internal leak from the SETI Institute revealed that the signal carried faint harmonics in the hydrogen band, the universal frequency used in theoretical interstellar communication. Someone, or something, wanted to be noticed. The scientific community split overnight. Half argued that 3I Atlas was the first physical evidence of an interstellar probe, perhaps debris or technology from a long-extinct civilization. The other half fought to preserve order, claiming everything was coincidence, and that nature could mimic intelligence if observed long enough. But as more data arrived, denial became impossible. The James Webb Space Telescope, reoriented to follow the object from its orbit at L2, detected a non-natural polarization pattern coming from the surface of 3I Atlas. Unlike any known comet or asteroid, it reflected light in alternating planes, as if rotating layers of material were intentionally modulating reflection. The readings even showed microsecond variations matching the rhythm of the radio pulses. At the same time, telescopes in Chile observed that its tail had reformed into 2 separate streams, not parallel, but crossing at a precise 90-degree angle. This geometry does not occur naturally. It was as if the object had split its emissions, using its own vaporized gases to send optical signals through space. Theorists began asking, what if these were not random emissions? What if 3I Atlas was using light itself to communicate, not with us, but with something else? Then came the event that changed everything. On August 29th, as 3I Atlas moved beyond Earth's orbital plane, its trajectory shifted by 11 degrees, a small but deliberate movement that placed it directly aligned with the ecliptic plane of the outer planets. The alignment was perfect. Too perfect. For 27 hours, the object's projected trajectory formed a straight line, passing through Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and beyond. All telescopes pointed at it recorded a strange luminescence radiating from its core, oscillating at regular intervals. Astronomers realized the intervals matched planetary orbital resonances exactly, as if 3I Atlas were calibrating itself to the harmonic frequencies of our solar system. The alignment was not random, it was choreographed. But what came next was even more disturbing. For the first time since its discovery, the object emitted a visible flash, a burst of ultraviolet light lasting 2.8 seconds, powerful enough to ionize the surrounding solar wind. The flash was not broad or diffuse. It was directional, aimed into deep interstellar space. When scientists traced the beam's vector, it pointed precisely to coordinates in a region between Vega and Lyra, the same region where the mysterious "wow" signal was detected in 1977. Then silence followed. The flash ceased, the radio pulses stopped, and 3I Atlas went dark. For weeks after the disappearance of its glow, the world watched in silence. Every telescope, every radar antenna, every instrument capable of tracking it remained fixed on its last known coordinates. But there was nothing. No light, no thermal signature, no reflected signal. It had vanished. NASA officially declared the object optically lost, meaning it had moved beyond detection range. Yet in the raw data archives of the James Webb Space Telescope, something remained. A fragment of light recorded in the final milliseconds before the ultraviolet flash disappeared. When the data was reconstructed, it revealed a faint interference pattern, a modulation within the light itself, like an optical fingerprint intentionally engraved into the universe. And within that pattern, there was structure. The modulation was not random noise. It contained repeated frequency ratios, the same ones seen in hydrogen transitions, planetary resonances, and even more unsettling, the human Schumann resonance, the electromagnetic heartbeat of Earth's atmosphere. Whatever 3I Atlas emitted in that final pulse was not a simple flash. It was a message written in light, encoded in a language older than words. When scientists at the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics analyzed the data through waveform analysis, the results stunned them. The signal reproduced the same prime number sequences embedded in earlier radio emissions, but now organized into a three-dimensional structure, a network of interlinked spirals resembling a double helix. It was not text. It was geometry, a universal constant, a blueprint. Avi Loeb, the man who had already called 3I Atlas possibly artificial, described the discovery as a cosmic signature of intention. According to his report, the geometry represented a form of resonant encoding, a way of storing vast amounts of information in energy patterns rather than symbols or language. If true, it means 3I Atlas did not send a message to be read. It left a code to be experienced, something that could only be understood by recreating its frequencies, making the universe itself vibrate the way it vibrated. NASA immediately classified the data, but not before several independent researchers mirrored the waveform and ran simulations in quantum resonance simulators. When they did, something extraordinary happened. A repeating harmonic began to emerge, growing with each cycle, as if the waveform were interacting with the fabric of space-time itself. Then suddenly, the signal inverted, and the simulation ended. But before it did, it displayed one final sentence, generated automatically by an AI translation module trained to interpret mathematical symmetries as linguistic meaning. The sentence read, "We remember you." The message spread through scientific circles like wildfire before being erased from public databases. NASA denied everything. SETI went silent. Even the European Space Agency's data archives were briefly locked under cosmic security protocols. Officially, 3I Atlas was declared a natural interstellar comet, its anomalies dismissed as data errors. Unofficially, the whispers grew louder. The object's final signal was not a farewell, but an activation. 2 months later, several observatories began detecting faint echoes of that same harmonic, not from the direction of Vega or Lyra, but from deep within our own solar system. The resonance matched perfectly, as if something nearby had received the transmission and responded. No one knows what this means yet. Some believe it is merely solar interference. Others think it is a cosmic echo reverberating through the heliosphere. But a small group of scientists, the same ones who first decoded the signal of 3I Atlas, believe something far deeper. That whatever sent this object did not leave a warning or a threat, but a reminder. A reminder that intelligence may not live outside the universe, but within it, in the harmony between light, matter, and consciousness itself. Because perhaps, just perhaps, 3I Atlas did not come to observe us. Perhaps it came to awaken us. So if this story made you question what truly exists out there, and whether something might be watching us right now, not from above, but from the very fabric of the cosmos, do not look away. Subscribe to this channel. We reveal discoveries the world is not yet ready to face. Turn on notifications, because when that signal returns, you will want to be here when the universe answers.